Hello there. I am so excited today to speak and interview a fellow Nova Roman of the name of Decimus Aurelius Ingeniarius. Before we do, though, let me just take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my thoughts with the stream. I would like to interview several different prominent Nova Romans about their interests and their backgrounds. And if you like the concept, please let me know, and then we could do more of these, maybe on a monthly basis. Well, like I said, I'm so pleased to have him on the call.
Salve, Mickey. How are you? How are you?
I'm great. It's 1 p.m. Rome time. The sun is shining and everything is great. How is it over there in Australia?
We're a little bit further into the future, so it's currently 11 p.m. Local time. It was a bit of a warm day here today, here in the southern hemisphere, but thankfully the next 2 days are going to be a little bit cooler for us, which is better for me. I prefer the cooler weather. So yes.
Nice. In Australia, it's mostly hot, though, right?
Yeah, we tend to get it a bit warm down here, and there's often been a problem with the ozone layer that just happens to sit above Australia. Although I do hear that it is closing and healing, which is good. But we've done some tests, and we have noticed that the sun is stronger here, and sunburns are more prominent, and skin cancer rates, for example. So Australians and by extension New Zealanders are very well equipped with sunscreen in most places to wherever we travel around the country, that's for sure.
Great. And hopefully you could, I don't know, because of all the lockdowns and the issues, hopefully you could enjoy the outdoors and travel a little bit these days.
Yeah, thankfully the stringent lockdown measures that Australia has become famous for have more or less eased across the country. Final borders have started to open between states as well, and more of us are starting to travel again. We have the mask mandate, which still exists, and I think is good, and that should help to stem the flow a little bit. But as we've seen, since we've released the measures, our rates of Omicron have skyrocketed, perhaps to be expected. So we'll see how the hospital systems cope and all that going forwards. But right, we are finally starting to see family and friends again after nearly 2 years of various forms of lockdown, particularly in the southern state of Victoria, where I'm currently located.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, why don't we jump in?
Sounds great to me.
So my first question to you, and normally I would like to introduce people with their titles, but since I've never actually taken Latin classes before and I can't really pronounce Latin names, is can you just briefly state your titles? And for the viewers at home that aren't familiar, what do the titles actually mean?
Sure, I can certainly do that. Now, my Latin isn't as strong either. It's certainly one of the things that's ongoing for me is my Latin courses and education, and I hope to take some more formal lessons in the next couple of years after some current studies. But I guess the most prominent office that I hold right now in terms of Nova Roma magistries is the position of Praetor. Which is kind of like the co-president or a vice president, if you like, and there are two praetors elected yearly. So myself and Gaius Cornelius Barossus are the two praetors this year, and we sit underneath the two consuls, which are elected yearly as well. So that is my main office there. Secondary to that, I am the governor of Provincia Australia, and I've held that title since October of about 2020 now, I think. So just a little over a year and a bit in service to that now. And that title, I guess, changes depending on my office. So prior to taking on the magistracy of Praetor, I was known as the Legatus Pro Praetori Australiae. And that term actually is a bit of a borrowed term from the imperial empire age of ancient Rome, whereas they didn't have that title during the Roman Republic as such, because governorships were awarded to pro-praetors and proconsuls, often once they completed their term in office as those higher magistracies. But in cases, for example, like in Nova Roma, we don't always have that luxury of being able to appoint all consuls or praetors to all the, I think, 22 provinces that we have in Nova Roma. And so in some cases, the Senate has granted some exceptions to lower citizens or citizens that haven't held those higher offices before. And as such, and I was provided that distinct privilege, a little over a year ago now. So the title changes. I think I am the Praetor of Australia now, or Praetor Australianus. And then perhaps once I conclude my term as Praetor, I'll become known as Praetor, a governor of the province here. So they're my two major offices where I look to further the objectives and goals of Novaroma and spread the Reenactors. But certainly, as you've alluded to, I've got a bunch of other smaller posts there and support positions, various positions of apparator or public servant positions where I support. So as a part of that, I am a part of the Officium Reinformaticae under Gnaeus Lentulus. He is the curator of that office, pretty much running all of our social media and website services, and I serve as a scriber underneath him and helping him with the website predominantly there. So I do a lot of work on the website and very much enjoy that activity as well. Love being able to update the information that's out there, looking at the new laws and helping to maintain the tabularium, which has been a project of mine recently, working underneath the good curator. So that's a task that certainly keeps me busy and one that I've very much enjoyed so far. Outside of that, I also hold a position of Prefectus Editor Principalis Canalis Twitch Novaroma. Bit of a mouthful, that one there. Pretty much that is the editor-in-chief of our very own Novaroma channel here, which we're streaming live on this evening. So I help to coordinate all the various streamers from across the globe and across the Roman Republic to stream various forms of live content. So that's good fun. And so I also hold a position as, an individual streamer. And I'm looking to kick off my own streams here on the channel again tomorrow evening, locally my time, for the new year, which will be good. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Outside of that, I've done a couple of other smaller posts, such as Dribator in the past as well. Served as an acensus to one of the consuls, and some various scriber positions to some of the other consular staff as well. So I've certainly dabbled in some various areas so far in my brief time in Novaroma, but that's a bit of a brief summary of some of my offices and magistries that I currently hold.
Nice. And I remember it was last summer where I saw an announcement on Novaroma regarding Twitch streaming, and I've actually never heard of Twitch before. So you actually brought me into like the Twitch orbit, and yeah, I remember, and we were discussing about different ways to stream, cell phone versus computer, and it's actually a little bit complicated.
Can be.
So I'm really glad that you were able to not only describe that for me, but also create a handbook. So for people like me, that could just kind of read it and get a feel for it.
That's good. I enjoyed putting that little streamer's manual together. And right, we want this to be open to everybody, regardless of technical ability or background or the resources that they have available to them, because that's what we're all about. We're all about sharing the Roman spirit and history and traditions and education, and yeah, we want to make that open to everybody, all those enthusiastic potential streamers out there. So yeah, it's bringing it to everybody. That's good.
Definitely. And I do have to say thank you to Sempronius for some bits.
Cool.
and so let me get to the most important question. Well, not the most important, but the most obvious question, which I've been asked so many times over the decades, is how did you become interested in ancient Roman history?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And for me, I guess my journey into ancient Rome is relatively recent. I guess I've always had a fascination with history in general, and particularly war history, particularly around the World War eras, and then some various conflicts in the past, before and after those times. And it was in 2019 when I first really got into really researching into ancient Rome. Particularly the politics surrounding ancient Rome as well. And it stems from a board game, actually. Now, Now, some people think this is a strange way to discover an interest in ancient Rome, and some even look down upon it. But I think if there's something that gets you interested, then all power to you. So for me, the board game in question that I mentioned, and I've got the copy here in front of my desk, so I can hold it up for people on the stream. It's called The
Sure.
Republic of Rome. It was a reprint released in 2009 by Valley Games, and originally was produced by Avalon Hill back in 1990, I believe. So the concept of the game has been around a long time. And this board game is best described as an ancient Roman political simulator. So up to 6 players control a faction of senators in the ancient Roman Republic. And they all are abiding for influence and popularity with the intent to win in various ways. And I really like it because the authors and the publisher of the game sought to try and grasp parts as accurate as possible and replicate some of those offices, and particularly the political intrigue that may have happened at the time during the Roman Republic. So I really got into this game, and what I actually initially was trying to do back in about 2019 is I was actually looking to build a prototype which would go in and expand into the Roman Empire. So it'd be a sequel to this Roman Republic game and use some of the same mechanics, cards and dice concepts, but it'd move on from, let's say, a player was elected consul for life. We could then move into that Empire era concept. And so I was starting to do a lot of research into the various magistracies and how the politics worked at the time. And I guess as we appreciate, certainly Roman Republican politics is very different to a lot of the modern governments that we see today. So there was certainly a lot for me to learn and understand. And through the course of my research, I came across this website, and eventually I found this website to be called Novaroma. And I loved the website. It was full of rich detail, and it was really great. And it bounced you around through all the various offices, and I learned a lot off the website. And eventually I found you could become a citizen. So this is a bit of a tale about, I guess, how I also joined Novaroma and found that you could become a citizen. I applied for citizenship, and I guess the rest is sort of history. And that really then overpowered my passion for studying ancient Rome. So yes, I have some interest in ancient Roman military practice and the legions and various battles and conflicts through the course of Roman history, but I've become quite fascinated in ancient Roman law, ancient Roman politics, and a lot of the culture as well. And that just opens up an amazing world of things to read and study. So, that's my tale, I guess, of how I've become fully engrossed in Roman, the Romanators and the Mos Maiorum.
Well, that's really interesting. I do have to say um, that nobody should knock getting into Roman history through a board game, because a lot of people got into Roman history through the movie Gladiator. And I
Right.
mean, there's so many historical inaccuracies. And that was actually one of the catalysts of my interest in ancient Roman history. So it's not really, obviously, it's not Roman history per se,
Sure.
but it's a way to engage you into that time and kind of pique your interest to learn about more. So
Right. And
that's amazing.
I was going to say that I've certainly developed quite a passion for this game, and it's a game I try and share now with all sorts of new people. And I host this game once a year now online, and I guess through this Twitch channel here, and in the hope that I can find more people that are interested in ancient Rome. It's now become a bit of a gateway into that world. So yeah, absolutely fantastic.
So did you design the online game yourself? Or because you said it's a board game, so is there like a board game component and also like electronic component, or how does that work?
So I guess when I first sort of really went serious with playing this online, I had to find a way of being able to, I guess, host it virtually, particularly as the COVID-19 pandemic was really sort of kicking off and kicking into gear. There's various websites out there which are able to host board games, if you like. So things like Tabletop Simulator is a good example. But I'd had some experience with a system called Roll20, which I think was originally a Kickstarter campaign, if I recall correctly. Now, the board game itself didn't exist as a component or a download in the Roll20 interface. So what I had to do was upload everything from the game virtually, like through a scanner or a photo, and then piece that all together back in that
Oh, wow.
Roll20 tabletop virtual environment. So I guess it was a bit of effort, and that was something that I'd done over the course of months, this project. And certainly since I first started playing it online, I've evolved the concept and changed things and changed, using some more of the Roll20 mechanics to make things easier. And it's something I'm quite proud of, this little thing that I've constructed online, this board game. And it's actually something I hope to do with a couple of other different board games that I have to play through that interface. And I think it's without having to charge other players, a fee for using a service or having to download another game themselves. The Roll20 is great. That means people can just literally jump on and start playing without having to download something or pay for something. And that's something I've really appreciated, I guess, about Roll20. So it was a bit of work, having getting high resolution images of all the cards and tokens. But it's a passion project, right? And it's Roman, so it's really not a burden at all at the end of the day. And I get to then share it with other people, which is awesome.
If I recall correctly, do you start it in August or September, and it kind of, well, obviously it takes a natural course, but this year it went into December, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So I normally start at about August, and I start advertising for new players in about that June, July period. Although it really picked up steam last year, so I don't think getting players will be a problem this year when I look to host it again, roughly about that August timeframe. And right, the last session, we actually saw a fantastic game, nearly about 50 hours worth of this game online. So
Wow.
the videos are actually here through the Twitch channel and on our provincial YouTube channel as well. So all 15 episodes, I think it was, in the end, about 50 hours worth of playtime. Really, really enjoyed it. I was very impressed with the players and their passion, and how they really got into the politicking and the intrigue. And it was good. There's a few Novaroma citizens, both old and some new ones, that have joined since that game. So that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I also, so I turned into a bunch of the streams, and I remember on the last session at the very end, once it was ending, and there was kind of like, a wrap up, conversation. I asked the question about um, how everything was organized, because you have a bunch of adults, and you have life,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it was on a weekly basis or most weeks or not, but I just found that really interesting how you could just organize it. I believe most of the people had Australian accents. I think I heard one American accent there. So,
It's that is true. It's often one of the hardest things to do, is get a bunch of adults together to play something or do something regularly. I'd actually set it on a Monday evening Australian time, and in the end, all of our players were from Australia, from Provincia Australia, albeit from various parts. So we had some players from Melbourne, some players from Sydney. One player from Adelaide, so there was a bit of a mix there, but we're all able to coordinate again and play. We might have missed 1 or 2 weeks, had to postpone for events and stuff that happens, but we were able to get together, and we found that Monday nights for most people is generally pretty quiet, and I guess that's why we sort of picked that night to play.
great. So, my next question is about Nova Roma in Australia. So, obviously, you have the pandemic going on, and it's difficult to meet. But what are your ideas in the future? So, once the pandemic is over, and you could schedule meetups.
Yeah, it's a good question. Certainly for Nova Roma in Australia, and I actually refer to off our Nova Roma website. There's a history page for Provincia Australia on there, which gives a fairly, albeit a high level rundown of things and activities and appointments that have occurred through Nova Roma's history, but within the province. And that's certainly, one of the projects, at least from a provincial point of view, that we're looking to continue to build upon, find those artefacts and those big milestones from our history of Nova Roma provincially. To give a bit of a rundown before I guess hit that future question, Nova Roma has sort of existed in Australia almost since Nova Roma's foundation. We can see evidence of citizens taking up governorships and some various other religious appointments coming out of the province from almost 1999 or 2752 AUC. And there's been some activity of the citizens through the course of the years. Now, of course, there was a bit of a slump during the difficult times of the illegal dictatorship. And we've really started to really try and make something of it now and really start to try and grow the province now. But we're almost starting from scratch, really. There's not a lot of other documentation or administration that's available to us presently. So we're really starting to build the concept, really starting to advertise and find interested parties and citizens and members. We're going back into archives and finding citizens that were around in those earlier days and reaching out to them again and trying to bring them back. And we've been successful in a few cases in bringing and introducing some citizens back into the Novaroman fold that otherwise had been disappeared for some time. But certainly future looking, and I guess the immediate goals of myself as governor and my staff is twofold. The first one is we're looking to establish our first prototype wikos. I think that'll be really good for us to, it'll be a catalyst for those physical meetings. So we're focusing that on the Melbourne region right now. We have a high concentration of active citizens in this area. Myself and some of my key staff, my provincial quaestor, for example, Sempronius Skepsis, he's based here as well. And so we're starting to gather some of those active citizens in this region to build that wikos concept. And certainly if that is successful, we're looking to then use that as a bit of a template going forwards and looking to stand up other smaller, those local communities around the rest of the province, both here and in New Zealand, which is also a part of the province as well. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, we've recently seen new legislation come out in the committees that were held at the end of last year, which brought in some new legislation defining local communities and for that of a wikos. So there's been some work in standing up the FOTUS or the Charter or the Constitution and making sure that that reflects the new legislation as well. So that's happening big time. We're hoping probably in the next maybe 2 months we'll see the initial announcements come through, make sure that it's cleared by the board of Latinus in Novaroma, that all that looks squared away, and then eventually I'll be able to pass an edict and we'll be able to stand up this first wikos, which will be quite exciting. And based on our historical records, that will be a first for the province to see a formal wikos under a governor's edict stood up in the region. So we're all really looking forward to that. So that's the first goal. The second goal that we have is to in the end of the day, what it really is public liability insurance, but it'll also be good exposure and recognition for us as well. So our activity at the moment, which is well into gear, is we're applying through an organisation known as the Australasian Living History Federation, and they provide public liability insurance to organisations like us that do reenactment or otherwise the various forms of activity that Novaroma does. And with recognition from them, that provides us a lot of power then for us to do public displays, public sacrifices or ceremonies, ludi, for example, for us to really get out there, both working with our allied and our partner organisations, and also to do activities ourselves, even as a wikos here in Melbourne or in other locations where we stand those up, and we'll have that protection. So we'll be able to have these official activities which will be recognised and allow us to do a whole plethora of activities which is otherwise would be legal and protected under the law. So we're very excited to be doing that. So we've submitted all our paperwork there, and we're hoping we'll get some positive comments and feedback out of the Australasian Living History Federation in the near future. So they're our two big goals for this year, and we should hopefully tick them off very soon within the first quarter. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Just a quick question regarding the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
What would it cover? For instance, I don't know if you have a gladiator reenactment that that would cover like somebody getting injured in a performance, or would it cover the audience, or can you briefly explain what that is?
For sure, and you certainly hit the nail on the head there. So it covers both our Novaroma citizens from personal injury or accidents, but it also covers spectators or audience that's watching us as well. So it gives us leverage and license to say, if we are doing gladiatorial reenactments or doing reenactments or parades with legions and armor and weaponry, it allows us to carry those authentic and accurate, potentially dangerous objects and be covered should an accident occur. Even if we're doing religious ceremonies and we have to have small fires or flames, we're all covered across the board for those activities. So we'll do risk assessments. Provincially, we will approve those activities, and we can take all sorts of requests from citizens. So if a citizen wants to do a little activity even on their own, we can look at that, discuss the risks with them, sanction that activity, and then they'll be able to go out safely and then be protected. So it's something that we can provide back to the local Novaroma citizens here in the province as a benefit of being a citizen of Novaroma, as we can provide them that public liability insurance, which is really good. So that's fantastic.
To be honest, I've never heard of such a thing. Obviously, if you have a big concert or, mass amount of people, yes, I could understand, but I didn't know that they're also required on a smaller scale. But Sempronius just wrote in the chat, also, it allows us to legally carry weapons that would otherwise be illegal.
That's right. There he is.
So,
Good to see that. Actually, the provincial quaestor is around, and he's 100% right. We can carry those weapons which would otherwise be illegal for anybody else. So yes, it's one of those advantages of being a Novaroma citizen for us to both do our reenactments, but also be our true selves as Romans and perform those religious ceremonies or games in public and be protected under law. So we're really hoping that we'll be able to finalise that in the coming months.
and is there an overlap of the province of Australia, Novaroma, and Roman reenactors in terms of soldiers or other living history participants?
Yeah, so there are a series of existing Roman-themed groups across the province, both in Australia and New Zealand. And certainly, I guess, probably a third goal really for us is to continue to connect with these other groups and to socialise and exchange information and education and work together. Which we're really excited to do, and that's certainly one of our missions in Novaroma overall. Now, we've already done that already, and I guess with reference to Sempronius Skepsis in the chat there. So he's actually from Legio Ten Frentensis, which is a legion run by ancient Roman reenactors Victoria, which is a well-established and mature group here in Victoria, in Provincia, Australia. And they are a representation of about the 1st century or under the Augustan era. And what I really like about them is their historical accuracy and their dedication and determination of the whole group and their committee and the field officers. And we partnered with them pretty early. I think September of 2020, I think, is when we first officially partnered with them. Novaroma officially partnered with them through a memorandum of understanding for cooperation, and that's been very fruitful. Certainly Novaroma has got a lot from that relationship, and we're really looking forward to continuing to work with the Legio 10 going forwards, which is absolutely fantastic. But they're not the only group in Australia, of course. There's a few other legions based in Sydney and Adelaide and Canberra as well, some of the other capital cities. So eventually, in good time, we'll be looking to reach out with them and make some friends and alliances and partnerships with those groups as well, to seeing what other sorts of activities we can do, and then connect them with other Nova Romans and really start to foster a really amazing provincial relationship of all things Roman. So that will be good, and we're looking forward to do some more of those partnerships.
And are you a reenactor yourself in terms of being or reenacting, like for instance, a soldier or someone, from daily life?
I am. I guess I do also consider myself a bit of a reenactor. So I'm also a member of Legio Ten Frentensis and ancient Roman reenactors Victoria. So I play the part of a legionary there, and I'm undertaking my military training. Just late last year, I finally finished a full first century Roman legionnaires kit. So the Lorica segmentata and the Gallia and the Scutum and the Gladius, the Caligae. I've got the whole kit now, and I can now go marching with the Legion and go out on camps and deployments. And I've done some really interesting activities with them, and featured in documentaries already, for example. And so I'm getting a whole new insight, a whole new world into ancient Rome through their group as well, which I absolutely love, and that continues to add to my knowledge and education. So wherever I am, and I tend to move around a bit, I hope I can join local legions and Roman groups. But certainly for while I'm here in Melbourne, in the Melbourne region, I'm doing some work and reenacting with Legio 10. Very enjoyable.
I've actually spoken to a few reenactors and read some forums online. One thing that's very well is a challenge is to get authentic Roman armor and helmets and swords at an affordable price.
Mm,
Now, some legions are 100% authentic. If a screw on a helmet isn't proven in a museum, you cannot get that.
right.
Some other people are or some other groups are saying, it has to be generally authentic, and they understand that, some suppliers in India that do metal work are much cheaper than other ones. And, as long as you could create a good event, an engaging event, and on the first look, things look authentic, it's also acceptable. So,
Mm.
so what are the thoughts of you and also that legion?
Yeah, certainly. For a lot of my early journey into, I guess, ancient Rome and ancient Roman studies is trying to discover those resources and those entities that can build, construct, and make those authentic Roman clothing or armor and weaponry, etc. And I've certainly learned a lot, I guess, from Arv and the Ancient Roman Reenactors Victoria group here. So they've been doing it for a few years now, and they've started to test out various manufacturers, predominantly from overseas. There's not a lot of high volume local manufacturers here. Often in the textile area, there probably is. So those that might make tunics and togas, you might find a few manufacturers here or local textilers or sewers that can do that sort of work. But really, when you come down to, I guess, the military side and the Roman legionary or centurion or whoever you're representing, we've often have to reach outside the province to manufacturers. So what we found is there's a workshop in Poland, I believe, called Fabricacti, a small operation there that do some incredibly authentic handmade work there. So we've got to pay a little bit of money for that now, but that's okay because usually the armor and the equipment that we're getting out of that organization will last us a long time, and certainly historical accuracy is important, and so we're always looking for that first and foremost. Now, some of those Indian manufacturers can often hit the mark in terms of that accuracy, but maybe the quality sometimes isn't there, and we will often find maybe buckles or braces that might break sooner rather than later, or the metal tarnishes differently perhaps. So there has been some testing. Sometimes, the Caligae might be really good out of one of the Indian manufacturers, but we're often going to places in Europe often, who often are already manufacturing for legions and Roman groups across the European Union. So tough for us. We've got to pay that a little bit more, and of course shipping is also a problem. But if you're willing to wait the time it takes, and you are willing to spend a few more dollars, you can really start to get some of that really authentic looking, researched, but also good quality equipment, and that just really adds to our experience.
Yes, Sempronius just wrote in the chat that historical accuracy is important, and ARRV attempts to strike the right balance between authenticity and affordability.
Mm.
But cheap Indian quality bling and/or HA, which I'm not sure it is not accepted no matter how
Oh yeah,
cheap.
historical
What
accuracy,
is
HA. Yep.
uh, yeah, it's actually interesting because on so eBay, just out of curiosity, I put in, Roman things that are being sold in the area. Sometimes you'll find some interesting, like you'll find an amphora, or you'll
Mm.
find this or that. Um, it was a few months ago. I saw a Roman legionary helmet on sale for like 70 or 80 euros.
Ah.
And then I thought that number one, that couldn't be authentic unless, maybe a wife was cleaning out something or whatever. And
Yep.
that might be more of like a cosplay thing.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I think obviously most people wouldn't know the difference. Like if you showed it to, I don't know, a group of kids, or I don't know, just some friends, they probably wouldn't know the difference. But
Right.
yeah. To be honest, I saw a few things that are slightly off, but you also have to imagine that, or understand that there are different helmets in different museums. So
Yes.
there were
Mm.
variations
That's right.
back then, but obviously, yeah,
Yeah.
that's important. Lentulus just actually also just wrote, the expectation and demands on reenactors to wear armor and clothes, proven by latest research, has become higher and higher. Many things that passed 10 years ago are now frowned upon by the international Roman reenactment
Right.
community.
Yeah, I think reenactors are placing high demands on each other, and I guess various groups are often scrutinizing each other for historical accuracy in many cases. Uh, certainly from a Nova Roman perspective, I certainly like the historical accuracy, and that's certainly what I guess we would strive for in the first instance. But we don't want to, push people out because of cost in all cases. And I guess there is time and place for compromise. And I think I guess the comments that Sempronius Skepsis Agricola said before in chat is right, is finding that balance between historical accuracy and cost. To make it, accessible to everybody, and definitely from Arv's perspective, they have a lot of, I guess, what they call club kit. So at least initially, they can put people in quite a large amount of the armor and helmets and shoes and weaponry until they can save up and purchase their own by whatever means, which is a really good system. I really
Oh,
like what they
so
do.
they're loaned. So
Mm,
they're provided the equipment on loan until, I don't know, they get more information. And they also, because I'm also thinking that, maybe it's not for everybody. So
mm.
it is a hobby that, takes some dedication and some money. So I guess it makes sense to kind of try it out to see if it's for them.
Yeah, 100%. And the way that the Legio 10 here in Victoria has set that up is really good. Is, yep, here we go, come along, try it out. Here's some loan kit. Try this armor on and the helmet. We can start to talk about what sort of costs you could expect to anticipate by buying your own kit. And if they like it, if they enjoy the training, if they enjoy that military lifestyle, then they can set them up with those resources as well. And I guess when you're a club, you can do bulk orders as well, and people can make savings on postage or even overall discounts. So yeah, it's a good system, I think, in terms of that. Instead of just heading in on your own and then maybe discovering you maybe don't like those concepts. Certainly for me, I do. So I can be expecting to be trying to save some money over the course of years and trying to buy various pieces of kit. So now that I've done a first century full kit, more or less, I'll be now looking to try and find some money somewhere. And I'm looking to do now a more Roman Republican era, like early on before the Marius reforms, for example. So like a
Oh, wow.
Chiarii, for example, one of the veteran soldiers of a manipuli or something at that time. So that's probably my next goal, I think.
So are you going to get one of the, like, those plumed helmets? Uh,
Potentially, yep. I guess, yeah. Once I've settled on, exactly what era I want to do and what sort of depiction I want to do, then I've got to do my research, and I'll probably rely on other military organisations for some of those resources as well. And then, right, it'll be a case of trying to plan those purchases.
I do have to say thank you to Sempronius once again for reaching out and giving some tier one subscriptions to
Cool.
fellow
Gracias.
streamers. So thank you so much. Now, I'm wondering, regarding the reenactment community, have you been asked to perform or to participate in some movies or TV shows because I believe that the recent series on Netflix about Rome um, has a lot of New Zealand actors in it.
Aha. Now that may very well be the case. There are one or two really large Roman reenactment groups in New Zealand, and we are looking to connect with them over the course, hopefully over the next 12 months, to really bridge that gap across the Tasman and between Australia and New Zealand in the province. And even just locally, I guess, and I think I briefly mentioned before with Legio 10 here in Victoria, we've been a part of some other smaller documentaries. I think it's called. Trying to remember off the top of my head, it was a Christian group called the Incredible Journey, I think, and we performed the role of various Roman legionaries and centurions in various scenes to help them depict the rise of Constantinus and that period of Roman history and Christianity, for example. So now that was an ARV activity, and I guess the group had gone to ARV, but we as Nova Romans also participated in that, or the Nova Romans within the Legion, I guess, got to be a part of that opportunity as well. So good opportunities all around, and that's part of those partnerships that we like to do, is to get exposure to some of those activities that are out there.
Nice. I've looked online and I've seen a few collections and special exhibitions about ancient Roman items in Australia. Have you had the opportunity to see any of them over the years?
Unfortunately, I haven't. There was one that actually passed through Canberra recently at the Australian National Museum. It was a whole large exhibit on ancient Rome. I think they've still got a set display there now, so that'll be on my radar to go see that very soon. I think their big display currently is actually on ancient Greece, which also perhaps would be also equally as fascinating, particularly I guess in the lead up to what would eventually become Rome and then the Roman Republic. So that'll be, and I often get to Canberra quite regularly. So maybe the next time I go, I'll have to go book in to the museum there and check out that what's there of the Roman exhibit.
Yeah, because I've noticed online, there's a few different museums with Roman items, but I'm not sure if, it's just a few display cases or if it's, a substantial collection. It's really hard to tell on some of these websites. But I do also notice that there are special exhibitions yearly that go through Australia. Um, and yeah, that also looks like it's very
It
interesting.
does.
Um, Now, I've actually never been to Australia. I've been to according to how Americans count continents, I've been to 5 of the 7 continents. And if I went to Australia, one of the reasons would be to see the Roman items there because I really want to see as many Roman museums and special exhibitions and collections and ruins in the world as possible. But that's
Well, if you
that's a bit hardcore.
yeah, if you ever come out, hey, you're welcome to stay with me in the Nova Roman spirit. There'll be a spare room
Sure.
here for you to so you can check it out.
Sure. Yeah, I just need to go to Australia and Antarctica. And those are the 2 most difficult continents
Right.
looking at a map.
For sure. Maybe if they put some more Roman displays up in Antarctica, that might make it worth the trip.
So Sempronius mentioned the special exhibition in the National Museum of Australia in 2019 called Rome, City and Empire. And
That's it.
it was a major one with exhibits on loan from the British Museum, which is such a wonderful place. I've actually been to the British Museum several times
Oh,
now.
awesome.
Have you ever had the possibility to go?
I've never made it as far as Britannia or even Greater Europe. I think that the closest I've come is Turkey actually, and I got to see some ancient sites through there.
Oh, what did you see?
Yeah, well, so this, oh gosh, how long ago was it now? Probably about 2006, I think. I had gone across to Turkey, and I guess Turkey has a lot of significance for Australians, predominantly because of the Gallipoli campaign, which happened in late of 2015. where Australian and New Zealand troops amongst French and British soldiers sought to advance through to Istanbul via the Gallipoli Peninsula and parts of Turkey there. Now, ultimately, that particular campaign was a fail, and historically, that's something very interesting to look at from a modern war perspective. But in terms of the rest of Turkey and I guess historical sites, there is a lot there. Now, I think they say something in the order of like 60% of, say, the Christian Bible, the events of the Christian Bible occurred through the area which is now modern day Turkey. And there's a lot of historical sites, particularly even before the Roman era, which are there. And we, as a part of our visit across, we got to see some of these sites. So places like Pergamon, Ephesus, which was pretty cool, and of course the big one, Troy. And I have a lot of memory of visiting Troy. To be able to walk through the various archaeological sites is astounding. And of course, there's several layers to Troy. As the city was razed and destroyed over the years and rebuilt, you can see the various eras through the course of history. I think there's currently 8 layers, and they named them accordingly. So Troy 1, Troy 2, Troy 3, as they discovered them through the course of digs. They eventually found one which predated all the other layers, and so they had to call it Troy 0 because it was an earlier area that they discovered before all the other ones through the course of their digging and archaeological research. Troy was also quite fantastic to visit as well. And I guess back then I didn't quite have the Roman and ancient passion as I do now. So I'm going to have to go back not only to Turkey and some of those ancient sites, but of course into Europe and Italy and without a doubt Rome. So maybe one day get some money, get some activity, get some time together, and I'm going to try and do as many of the ancient battlefields, ancient sites, and of course Rome. Hopefully, within the next couple of years.
Well, I mean, the first time I went to Rome was in 2002, and I was a bit interested in Roman history, but it hadn't been that much developed yet. So, I mean, I was 19 years old. So, anyways, it's such an overwhelming experience. I believe I forgot how many times I was there. It's either 11 or 12 times
Wow,
between 2 days and 2 weeks.
impressive.
There's so much there. But I mean, on the other hand, I mean, you have such a special feeling. So I'm really hoping that you could experience it soon because
Mm,
I mean, just I don't know, there's a big difference between reading about Rome and standing in the Roman Forum
right.
and going to the Rostra or the Palatine Hill, and you could see where the Caesars lived. I mean, it
Yeah.
really brings the history to life. But you've actually in the 3 places in Turkey you've mentioned, you've been to 2 that I haven't been.
Aha.
Um, so in Pergamon, I read that that's one of the steepest theaters in the Greek/Roman world. Did you walk up and down the theater?
So I actually went back just recently to have a look at some of the photos that I took when I was there, and right, I did. I apparently had walked up that theater in that space and looked down from the top, I guess that was really impressive to see some of that build. So that was quite good.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it and it's so steep and I'm a bit, you know, I don't know about scared of heights, but I get dizzy a little bit and I'm not sure. I mean, like I would love to visit, but I'm not sure if, I would try going down the steps because obviously in ancient Roman theaters you don't have any railings or anything and
True.
it's very steep.
Yep. I I
Yeah.
can't recall, how maybe dangerous or it was. As long as you're a little bit fit to climb the way up, but I certainly thought it was okay for the time, at least for me and the as young as I was back then.
Yeah. Um so you've seen some Roman items in Turkey. Have you been to any other either ruins or even have you seen some museum collections elsewhere in the world?
Uh, I wish that I could say that I had. I spent a few years in the United States, and there would have been some opportunities there for me to encounter and go through some museums and some artifacts there. But It was about, as I said, about 2019 when my interest really started to take off, and I was about to depart back for Australia at that time. So I missed out, I guess, on some opportunities there. So
Oh,
right, my drive now is to start trying to find, particularly I guess locally first, and then abroad when I can.
definitely. Yeah, one thing that not everybody knows is in the US, there's some world-class collections. For instance, in New York City, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, it, it has an overwhelming amount of Roman and also Greek items. And also in California, you have the Getty Museum. And then between the coasts and in Texas, which I visited last year, there's a few different museums. And like I said, these are world-class museums. These aren't, you have a few shelves of this or that. So if you're ever in the US again, I could definitely give you some pointers
Perfect.
of where to visit.
I love the sound of that. That sounds good.
Nice. So what aspects of Roman history are you most interested in, or do you like to read the most about?
Yeah, look, a good question. Certainly for me right now, a large part of my drive and study is actually around the praetorship. I really want to get a better understanding of the role of the praetor during ancient Rome, and perhaps apply some of that traditional and ancient practice in what I'm doing now as praetor for Novaroma. So I've actually started to read some books here. So it's not bad. It's a book by T. Corey Brennan. It's fairly well rated by those in the community. There are some more recent publications on the praetorship, but in terms of a collection up to this point in time, it's a very good book. Now I'm about partway through this at the moment, and it's actually been a really good, interesting read to see the history, the praetorship, and the evolution of the role. I haven't got to the meaty part about some more of the legislative stuff and the edicts, but I'm not far off. So there's actually 2 volumes to this book, and I actively sought to acquire both of those as a part of my modern office to read a little bit more about them. So I'm enjoying that and continuing that study there. But overall, I think I've really come to enjoy the politics and the machinations of the Senate and the government, and how legislation came into being during ancient Rome, and that's a big driver for me, is why I'm following the Cursus Norm in Nova Roma. No better way to learn about it than to do it, and it's been a really good eye-opening experience, and to be able to work with some really experienced magistrates that are fulfilling the other roles as well. So that's been a big drive for me. Of course, Roman military history is very close second in there, and that's part of my reason for also joining the Legion, and learning about some of the historical battles, and for example, the amazing generalship of Gaius Julius Caesar, and the ways that he was able to fight through Gaul, and then some of the stuff in the civil war of ancient Rome as well. So some of that war history has also proved to be quite fascinating. There's just so much material out there, and particularly a lot of the material that has from authors that has survived through the thousands of years to date is really eye opening. So I've started to acquire a lot of the works from Cicero, for example, and some of his original works and books. Perhaps a little bit cliche. Perhaps everybody reads Cicero, but as somebody who was a bit of I like to consider myself a bit of an orator. I like to do a lot of public speaking, and certainly I consider Cicero perhaps as a bit of a role model in that regard. So I've been reading a lot about his works, and I've bought a couple of his republished books from over time, and hopefully I can get to reading those over the next year, 2 years as well.
So Cicero is also interesting because not only was he an orator and a politician, but he was a witness to major events
Yeah.
in Roman history. So you could read about his thoughts, about the assassination of Julius Caesar. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know anybody else who wrote contemporarily about the assassination of Julius Caesar and recorded the thoughts, and that has been left to posterity. I mean, definitely definitely interesting. Lentulus wrote regarding your book that you just showed about the praetorship, that
Yeah.
it's a good book and it was used to um, on the composition of the new constitution for Nova Roma.
There we go.
Uh, quick quick question. In that book, how much information is derived from original sources and known fact, and how much of it, um, the information is more, conjecture, kind of filling in the gaps? Because that's what you that's what I read a lot. For instance, in SPQR Mary Beard's book, very popular, many times, we don't know the answers for one topic or whatever, and there's a lot of gaps to fill, obviously, on an educated basis, where, although we have a lot of primary information, we don't have perfect knowledge of everything.
Mm. Yeah. So what I found in the book so far is it tries to look at a couple of different key sources on a particular subject, for example, so Livy and the works of others, and it tries to analyze, I guess, contextually about what those original authors were perceiving at the time when writing on a subject, and then the current author of this book tries to apply credit depending on the circumstance or the context, and I guess that's good as the reader or the person learning here to see, well, in this regard, say something to do with the edicts of the praetors, for example, it'll compare the works of a few, and then it may give credence to one or the other based on certain evidence or factors, but it tries to present most parts of the story that are available, which is good. So you're getting a little bit of everything there. But right, there is a little bit, has to be some gap filling because right, we don't have complete records, but it does its best to make a sound, reasoned recollection based on the evidence that's available.
Nice. And you mentioned numerous things about, interested in people and events in the Roman Republic. And obviously, Nova Roma is about the Roman Republic. But are you also very interested in events during imperial times as well? And maybe even late Roman times?
I am. Actually, one of the things I've purchased and certainly something I can recommend to the viewers is there's a website called usefulcharts.com. And one of the things that this website offers is a series of posters, really, or charts. And I bought one that was actually based on the Roman emperors, or I guess the lineage of Roman emperors, and it provides, in part, the family tree and who preceded who, etc. And that's really given me a good insight as to and to look at all the emperors through history. I've really come interested into analysing the time of the emperors for those that were perceived to have done a really good job. For example, the year of what they called the five good emperors, which contained Marcus Aurelius, for example, and certainly he has been depicted in many modern day movies, like Gladiator, for example. So I've developed an interest to read more about those emperors that I've seen more in more modern depictions and documentaries. As I mentioned before, I've developed this fascination with Cicero back in the Republic, and by extension of working with colleagues in the Legion, more of an interest in Julius Caesar as well. There's always two sides to those who've researched into Julius Caesar. One will say that he was a dictator and he destroyed the Republic, but then there are others that go, well, hang on a minute, he was very popular with the people, and he made Rome prosper, and he was an incredible general and won many battles. And some see him as a really an amazing figure in Roman history. And so to really be able to dive into that, both through books and YouTube and documentaries, and has been a great experience. And particularly, I guess, at my age, and now having developed this passion, I can really enjoy reading and watching those. And I hope to share that spirit with others going forwards.
Definitely. And Caesar's interesting, especially for the fact that he wrote several books about his own wars.
Yeah.
And I have two of them. One of them is Penguin Classics, just translation in the third person. But I also have one of them from the 1960s. And every time he wrote Caesar in the third person, the book changed it to I.
Really?
Or me, to have, yeah, to have it more immediacy,
Wow.
because it's weird to talk, talk or write about yourself in the third person, but you really feel a connection, about when reading him, to really understand his thoughts. Obviously, today some people could say, "Oh, that's a bit propaganda," or maybe kind of inflating numbers or this or that. But it's a fascinating read. Have you got the chance to go through it yet?
Not yet. It's on my ever growing list of things to get through and to read, and I certainly find that fascinating in the fact that he did write in the third person, and I hope I can encounter that soon in my readings.
Nice. Um, I actually forgot at the beginning. I wanted to mention how you came up with a name, a Roman name, because obviously when everybody joins Novaroma, one of the things is, to come up with a name.
Yeah, a solid question. Perhaps like most, and certainly because I was new to the whole Roman concept, I didn't know a lot about names. And in Nova Roma, we have and we follow the tria nomen naming convention. So we've got the three names: the praenomen, the nomen, and the cognomen. And there's some historical accuracy that we have to achieve with our names. The praenomen, for example, there's really only the set about a dozen names that otherwise historically proven that we get to choose from. Now, in terms of my praenomen, I had chosen Decimus. I think I had an affiliation with the number 10, for example, for various reasons. So that was pretty easy. Aurelius for me, although it's quite common, particularly in Nova Roma as a gens and as a nomen, I think I drew that from Marcus Aurelius and the Emperor, actually. I was trying to originally derive a connection with a name from my board game that I've been playing, that Republic of Rome board game, and I'd played various senators from history as a part of my faction in that game. So initially, I was trying to make connections there as well. And then when it came to the cognomen, that took some back and forwards with the censorial office and the censor at the time, which I actually think was our current consul, Ola Italia Scholastica. So we went back and forth several times talking about potential cognomen that I could have. Now, initially, I didn't realise that under classic tradition and conventions that the cognomen is often a depreciating characteristics of an individual. So, it might be the word for bald or fat or big nose or loud or obnoxious. There's a whole plethora. Chickpea, you name it. Whilst initially I was going for something that meant like to be an orator or a presenter or a speaker or something like that, which is something that I enjoyed doing, that, as I mentioned previously. But that didn't quite cut the conventions. But anyway, eventually the censor come back and said, well, you're an engineer, and that's what I do by day. I'm an electronics engineer. And they said, would you like to use engineer because your form of employment is an acceptable version of a cognomen? I said, actually, that's a really good idea. And so I would go on to adopt the cognomen Ingeniarius, and then the rest is history from there. And I've really come to like Ingeniarius, and I guess the Sturpus Aurelius Ingeniarius. It's Ingeniarius. I don't think has existed at all yet as a cognomen within Nova Roma until now, which is pretty special. And it's a difficult name to spell. It's a little bit unique. So I've really come to appreciate the name. But yes, that's where my name comes from. Ingeniarius means engineer, so based on my employment.
And not only is it unique, you could also technically just refer to yourself by one name, because some people do that if they have a name that's very unique. But a lot of people do have, um, a more common, even though there's plenty of to choose from, they're more common. So then you see people using, two or three names to differentiate yourself from someone else.
Right, right. Look, for
But
me, I'm not. I don't guess I don't have a major preference, but I think I do like Ingeniarius. And for those who are happy with the pronunciation, and that's assuming I'm even pronouncing it right, in terms of Latin convention, I'm sure somebody will correct me. But I very much like being called Ingeniarius. If not, otherwise it's Decimus Aurelius in various all other forms of activities or public business. But pretty relaxed on that front.
yeah, Lentulus just wrote that his means slowly or slow,
Right.
which
Yes. There we go. So there's another example. Right. Good.
So, and he also says you swallow the second I.
Ah, right. So in
But
in my name, right.
so
Ingeniarius.
Ingenarius.
I'll have to practice. We'll have to get the Latinists in Novaroma to do some recordings of various names so we can all practice. But good, excellent.
Yeah. Hortensia just wrote in the chat, your friends call you by your cognomen. Usually you're called by your nomen.
Yes, that's right. Roman convention. There we go.
Yeah. Um, nice. And then Lentulus in the chat, he wrote phonetically how he would pronounce it.
Good.
Well, thank
I'll
you
have to
so
look that up.
much. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I prefer I prefer to go by two names, Decimus Claudius, and that's what I use, for instance, for Facebook or for Instagram because it's just easier, especially outside of Nova Roma, for people to just remember two names rather than a first initial and then a dot and then two names. You know what I'm saying? It's just
Right.
it makes things a little bit easier, but oh well. So um earlier I asked, or actually in advance, I asked you if you had some Roman items around your house. And you mentioned that you had a couple coins. So I'm wondering if you could share those with us.
Yeah, I would love to. So when I first jumped on the ancient Rome bandwagon, naturally I went out looking for things or artifacts that one could purchase, and coins is obviously a big one. They're often in quite ready supply. So I actually went along when I was in the United States at the time to a local antique store, and there they actually had. Albeit a small number, but a collection of a few ancient Roman coins. And eventually, out of the set, I decided on one, and I have one here. It's in its special case. If I hold it up, now this is from the Constantine era. If I look at here, Constantine the Great, so about 330 CE. Which is good. So this was the very first Roman thing, I guess, that I purchased
Oh,
for
wow.
myself. As you can see, it was about $9 that I purchased that for, which is pretty good, I suppose. I mean, I don't really have a really good gauge yet as to the modern worth of Roman coins, but I guess it depends on both the era, the depictions, how many of those coins are readily available through the market, I guess. But for $9, that's pretty good
Yeah.
to kick off the collection. So that was.
Do you know where it was minted?
I don't. I haven't actually done much study of the coin myself in question, but there are links here, and there's a barcode to the International Numismatic Bureau. So maybe there's some other research into the serial number that I have here, and I can perhaps find that out. It'd be good to find out.
Nice.
I've also got a few others here. I don't know how well I'll be able to show this on camera. Oh no, there we go. So I've got another 6 coins here. So these are all from the Teutoburg Forest. So again, I guess early.
Are they
First,
sesterci or?
first century. So I don't actually know. So these coins I haven't studied in great detail. I can make out some lettering and some depictions on some of the coins. So maybe I'll have to do some high res photos and share it with the community. Others are quite well worn. So I'll have to see what I can make. Now, I was gifted these by one of the I guess the centurions, or one of the heads of one of the other local legions here in Australia. Actually, one of my first activities being a legionnaire on an activity out at Miraboo North, not far here from Melbourne. As a gift, as a hello, he gave me a few of these coins that he had collected himself from that site, which was very special. So I consider it my first Legionnaire's pay, those coins. So now the obligations
Nice.
on me is to do a little bit more research as to what they are and where they're from, which is very exciting. So maybe we can talk to some experts perhaps eventually and have a look at those in a little bit more detail.
I just want to mention the fact because I've been there before. So the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, with Varus, um, it's not exactly known where it took place, but it's believed by most scholars today to be a site near Kalkriese in northwestern Germany.
Right.
And I've actually been there. It's interesting. Regarding coins, though, I do have to say that the laws are different in Germany than in England or in Great Britain. So in Great Britain, pretty much you could go to many sites with a metal detector,
Right.
and as long as you have permission, you could dig things up. If you find a lot of coins or brooches or this or that, um, you would have to meld it, or not meld it, you would have to register it with the coroner because they're in charge of treasure hoards.
That's right.
And if it's not a big deal, you keep them. Obviously, the landowner gets, I believe, 50%
Right.
of either the items or the monetary value. Also, if it's a big collection, then it normally is sold to a museum or
Mm.
some institution, and you get the money. You don't keep the coins. In Germany, it's a bit different. The As a hobby, metal detecting is not allowed. Now, you
Oh,
could go if you're, let's say, if you're an archaeologist, if you have permission, if you have a reason, if you know what I'm saying, if you know
right.
if you have a reason to metal detect, or you know you talk with the authorities and be like, okay, I would like to do this and that, but if it's more of a archaeological slash so scientific approach, and there's pros and cons because there's so many treasure hoards, and not only coins but other items that were found in England only because of metal detecting, whereas in Germany I'm sure that there's hundreds of thousands or millions of coins and other metal objects in the ground, but if you don't have permission by your local authorities, you can't do anything.
Right. And
So,
I guess that's something to certainly take note on. Is right. There are various laws governing ancient artifacts like that. So that's a good point to bring up. Not entirely sure what they are for Australia. Obviously, we wouldn't be finding Roman stuff all the way down here, and if we did, it would be an extraordinary find and change a lot of history. So never say never. I guess we don't know everything about ancient Rome, but yeah, from a Roman point of view, maybe not so much of an issue.
yeah, I remember a few years ago that a few Roman coins were found in the foundation of a castle in Okinawa in Japan, which I've actually visited.
Huh,
Um, the only thing that was is that doesn't mean because Roman coins were found that there was trade links in so ancient times.
right.
It could also mean that the Jesuit priests from Portugal could have brought them, as gifts or trinkets in I don't
Exactly.
know,
Yep.
roughly 14, 1500s, and it was just put in a basement or this or that. I mean, obviously, even in modern times, coins are moved, so I wouldn't be that surprised that, maybe in 50 years, somebody's digging in some US home and they'll find some Roman coins in the ground. But that just means that it was just brought
Romans
way
were
after
here.
the fact.
Right. Right.
Yeah. The only thing that was, when you first had your Roman coin in your hand, did you have some special feeling? Because, I mean, it's a bit of ancient Roman history and art. I mean, in your hands, like a physical representation. I mean, was there a special feeling that you had, or is it just me?
No, I'm with you. To particularly this first one, right? To hold that in your hand and look at it. This is thousands of year old, and there was that somebody at some point in history, one of our predecessors, one of our ancestors has held that, maybe purchased something with it, or it sat in somebody's pocket or somebody's purse. It's just extraordinary to think about some of the history of this. I mean, we just think about our modern currencies and how they travel, how they get used, and can only to think about this one, and then eventually where it would lay for some period of time, but before it was found again, and then how it found its way to the antique shop in which I purchased it from. So yeah, there's certainly a special feeling there. And then as I continue to learn more about ancient Rome and get more involved in Novaroma, that feeling only grows, right? That Mos Maiorum and that connection back to our Roman ancestors. So yeah, 100% with you. I feel it.
And it's it's a big hobby in of itself because there's many
Yeah.
Roman coin collectors. Um, I'm actually a member of a coin club. I'm one of the youngest people though, so I'm
Good.
hoping that the hobby really, continues. But it's also interesting how many people are have collections based on something specific. Like I know some people that want to have coins of different temples. So if you stick with denarii, I don't know how many. Let's say there's like 50, 60 different types. Just um, like I said, I don't know, just for reference purposes.
Hmm.
But then they go to provincial coins, and for instance, in Turkey or Greece or in the Roman East, a lot of the towns were able to mint their own coins. So you could really go crazy hunting, a temple for uh, uh, a coin of a temple from Perga or from Mesopotamia, different cities, different emperors. It's really like an open-ended quest.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't know, you're playing Pokemon or something and you collect all the Pokemon. This is it could be a never-ending challenge
True.
if you want to. Or a lot of people like to collect the 12 Caesars like in Suetonius's book.
Ah.
But half of those denarii, because obviously, silver really retains a good portrait more easily than bronze.
Ah, right. Yep.
Extremely expensive. I mean, I have a few of the 12 Caesars, but I mean, if you want to get a denarius of Claudius or Caligula, we're talking easily four figures.
Mm.
Same thing with Julius Caesar with his portrait.
Oh, yeah.
Um, a few of the emperors are a bit easier, but a few of them are. I mean, probably the easiest would be Vespasian because just just because I'm not sure if it has to do with currency reforms or just the expansion of money during his time, but you could easily pick up, a decent denarius of him for about, let's say 40 euros, but most of the others are just way more.
Yeah, right. Well, you certainly know your stuff about coins. My journey is only just beginning, and look, I hope I can get a hold of a few more. There's one or two retailers and outlets here in Australia that deal with ancient coinage of across a few different eras, and there's a few that have actually got a few from the Roman Republican era that I'd really like to get a hold of. But right, they do have a bit of a price tag attached to them, and perhaps rightly so. Maybe one day I can get a special one as I continue my studies, might make a formal connection with some part of that history, and I can get a coin to represent that perhaps. So we'll see
Yeah.
what awaits me.
I've also met a few people that specialize in collecting um, denarii from the Roman Republic. On the reverse, sometimes you'd have quadrigas. You would have four horses and a chariot,
Mm.
and that image was very common. But there were also other people that commissioned coins to showcase, an old ancestor or this or that. So, I
Mm.
mean, there's all. It doesn't matter what period of Roman history you choose. There is just fascinating coins, and there's also coins for every budget. So I mean, that's a good way for people also to come into Roman history
Yeah.
is also through coins. Yeah. Well, I see that it's getting a little bit late, but there's one question that I have, and I thought about it when we first spoke back last summer, and
Hmm.
it's about the mustache because it's not a common mustache that you see today, but it is definitely something that you would see, in historical photographs, 100 or more than 100 years ago. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of story there.
Uh, I wish there was perhaps more of a story. So I think the moustache style these days, I think is referred to as an Englishman. Englishman style. Now, the moustache growth at the moment is still a little bit juvenile, but certainly last year, before I did the yearly cutoff, I was able to curl it right round. I'm aiming for about 270 degrees worth of curl and employing the moustache wax. But I certainly enjoy having a hairy upper lip, although I could do with a little bit more in the centre here. So maybe in some future iterations of the moustache, it can get a little bit better. But when I did shave off the moustache mid to late last year, I didn't like what my face looked like without it. So I'm definitely keen to keep the moustache for longer this year. It's become part of my persona now, I think. I don't think it's overly Roman, at least not without the beard portion anyway. But who knows? Maybe I can forge a path ahead as a modern Roman, but with the moustache. We'll see.
Yeah, I've seen many statues and mummy masks and depictions of Romans around the world. I don't think I've ever seen a depiction with your type of
Yeah,
mustache.
right.
Normally you it's either clean shaven,
Hmm.
a beard, or stubble.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty with stubble. But yeah,
Yeah,
I was
100%.
always thinking that that it goes back to a great grandfather or something, but
Look,
nope.
my father certainly wore a moustache quite well. Um, and I guess I've always wanted to grow a moustache for many years now, but I guess I didn't have that prowess to grow one until the last year or two when I've attempted again, and I was actually able to do a little bit more with it. So it's become a bit of a trend now, and hopefully we can turn it into a modern Roman thing. We'll see.
Nice. So a couple quick questions
Mhm.
before we slowly wrap up. I'm wondering about your tunic. Where did you get that, and can you just briefly describe it?
Yeah, certainly. So right now, as they call it as an ex officio member of the Senate. So I'm a non-permanent member of the Novaroma Senate right now. So as I'm elected into the praetorship, I get the privilege of sitting on the Senate. And as a part of that privilege, I get to wear the toga praetextra and this particular tunic, which I'd wear underneath, which has the broad purple or red stripe or the red crimson stripe. Depending on your depiction there. So I get to wear that just for this year. In fact, this tunic and the accompanying toga praetextra, I had commissioned or had made personally. Well, actually, while I was in the US, I found a seamstress over there that was able to take the dimensions and we discussed the cloth and the material and came up with a rather heavy and thick design, perhaps as the togas were of the late Republic and early Imperial era. Which is quite good. So this is actually one of my originals. So, in terms of breadth, it's perhaps not as historically accurate. They're certainly a little bit wider and a little bit bulkier. It's probably a little bit too long and not wide enough in this particular depiction. But over the years, I've sought to acquire more variations of toga and tunic. So I got a toga Aurelius that was made locally here in Victoria by somebody with some textile skills. That was made of more of a lighter fabric, which still had that wool-like look, but otherwise was a little bit lighter for the hot summer Australian weather. So that was good. And more recently, and I'm very privileged. So my provincial quaestor. Sempronius Skepsis Agricola, he gifted me a beautiful Ungusto Clavia, which is the equestrian thin striped tunic, handmade from Italy, and somebody out of Italy that makes quite a few things like vex and togas and tunics, etc. So very privileged to receive that as well, and I'll be able to wear that one in particular going forwards. More into the future. So I'm slowly building up a collection. Most of my clothing and textiles right now are quite formal for public and government business. Eventually, I'll be looking to get some more casual male Roman clothing as well going forwards. Things I can wear around the house here. It's a bit difficult getting around my house and doing the cooking in tunics and togas all the time. So I'll be looking for some more casual Roman wear going forwards as well when I'm not purchasing other bits of armor or equipment.
Now, regarding the toga, um, the it is a lot of cloth because I've actually ordered a toga. Can you do you know how big it is? Because I'm not sure, but I believe in the Republican times, the togas were a bit smaller, and
Mm.
during the imperial times, they expanded
Yeah,
in
that's right.
size.
During the early republic they started relatively small and they continued to grow in size and became rather unruly garments towards the end, particularly into the imperial age. I mean, that's why you often see the men in particular. The left arm was covered. The left arm's sole duty, really, in the end, there was actually just to hold the toga in place and hold the fabric in place. So they really only had a right arm free to gesture or point or whatever the case may be. But unlike how some people might try to depict a toga with a white bed sheet, togas were actually more of an unusual semicircle shape. They would vary from a sort of like a sort of a four-sided, interesting semicircle, and they would vary in that shape, more circular or a little bit more rectangulish over the course of the centuries. And right, so the era that we sort of get, that late Republic, early Imperial, they were quite large, and we're talking, particularly in terms of length when you lay these out, we're nearly maybe sometimes 15 foot, which is huge when you lay them out. So they take a lot to put on. You do need assistance to put them on properly. In fact, back during ancient Rome, they had slaves to dress them, and it usually took 3 people to dress somebody properly in a full size tunic, particularly into the imperial age. So now we don't have slaves, thankfully, in the modern era, but I do require assistance, and so I've often pulling in wife, family, or friends to help dress me when I need to be in the various garments for oaths of office or investiture or the ceremonies or reenactments that I'm doing here locally. So yeah, they
Is it
can be difficult garments to wear.
is it technically possible to put the toga on yourself, like rolling around or doing something, or is it just out of the question?
I haven't tried to really put it on by myself. I think you could if you're patient, but there is some weight to the fabric, of course, and your arms might get tired if you're holding up, say, your left arm and you're trying to drape the fabric yourself. Look, you probably could, and you probably could get away with it. But if you're really looking for a nice depiction and getting the folds right, particularly across the left shoulder, I think you're going to need some assistance. But if you're in a hurry, I'm sure you do it yourself. And I think I've tried to give it a go once or twice myself, but it is difficult. Particularly if you're trying to keep it clean,
Yeah.
trying to keep it off the ground. Yeah, that's where the help really comes in handy, is helping to keep the fabric clean.
Oh, there is a comment by Hortensia, and she wrote, M. Octavius Corvus can put his toga trabea on by draping it over a chair while he puts it on.
That's a good idea. Yep, that'll help to keep it off the ground. Yeah, perfect. And that'll have to be a technique that I'll have to try.
Yeah, so maybe somebody could do a YouTube video,
Yes.
how if necessary one could put it on, because like I said, I have ordered one, and I've never put on a tunic or a toga, and I'm a, a little bit intimidated, but I'm also very excited about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good first occasion, and certainly I've watched quite a few videos on how to put one on properly, and I think I'm still not confident despite having worn them a few times now. But yeah, maybe more locally in Novaroma, we can get some of our experienced magistrates together, put them on camera, and they can show us how to put one on properly, and even maybe even how to make them and the dimensions. That would be cool.
And have you worn your toga or tunic in Australia outside of a Roman context, like Halloween, or just going to a store, or just, I don't know, going for a walk?
Yeah, yeah. Where I can, I now try and wear it as much as I can. Of course, the first point of call is fancy dress, is where they come out, and I'm able to, and that becomes a talking piece, right? And I can talk to people about ancient Rome and Nova Roma. And talk to them about the traditional aspects of depending on the type of toga that I'm wearing, which would either be a toga virilis or a toga praetexta, and then of course the types of tunic that I would wear underneath. But I have come to wearing them more around at home as well. They can be quite a comfortable garment, and it continues that Roman spirit. So I'm trying to find more opportunities. It can certainly take people aback if you're wearing it out in public. So where I can, I try and find those opportunities.
Nice. Yeah, because I believe also that there are some thinner togas and thicker togas. Normally, I believe in the ancient times they were mainly made of wool,
Right.
although richer people could, for instance, afford silk. These days, I mean, wool is also expensive, so I
Hmm.
believe sometimes people use linen or other fabric
Right.
that are not as expensive and also not as thick and easier to wash. So there's a bunch of different considerations
True.
these days while ordering a toga.
Yeah, and that's certainly for me. I mean, wool is expensive. I'm often trying to find wool lookalikes that have that sort of same appearance, but may not necessarily have the same feel. But I want to try and get as close to that historical accuracy as we can without blowing the budget. And as Sempronius Skepsis Agricola said before, it's about finding that balance. And there's certainly lots of depictions. We could make an argument that down here in the southern province, because of the sun, the materials are different, and the way the heaviness or the lightness of the material is different for reenactment purposes. And it's certainly good to see all the various depictions of toga and tunic. You can see right across the Roman Republic, and I think some of that variety is good and often a reflection of the local area and the local skills of those who are making it.
Definitely. And it's also nice because it's very easy to identify a toga with Roman history. You know, it's or a Roman suit of armor. So it's very visual, especially
Right.
when it comes to reenactments. I've been to a few, and there will be lots of families coming and this or that. But one thing that a lot of visitors likes to do is just to take a look at what they're wearing, what shoes they're
True.
wearing, and just ask 1,000 questions. I mean, especially
Yeah.
with younger people, it really stands out.
It does. It does. Yeah, it's. I think it's nearly synonymous, right? That regardless of the age group, people can usually recognize something Roman or something that was to be Roman, whether it be the toga or whether it be armor. I mean, the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire played such a huge, prominent part of our modern history. It led to a lot of things, and it's no wonder that in most places it's taught as a considerable subject, which is great to see.
Definitely. One question that I forgot to ask earlier, and it just came to me right before we wrap up, is so with the legion that you're in,
Hmm.
do you also use like ballistae or scorpions, or not just swords, but also these war machines?
Yeah, thankfully with Legio 10 down here, we have that opportunity to use some of that ancient hardware. We're lucky that one of the founders and I guess the current centurion of Legio 10 Frontensis, he's originally from the United Kingdom, and he had done a lot of reenactment and siege work over there. And when he moved to Australia, he brought all that with him, which is very exciting. So we've got Roman ballistas and onagers, which we have available and we can fire, and they are legal under state law, under the pretext of that public liability insurance, and they are real, right? So when they're torqued, we can put a bolt in, we can fire these things, and we're aiming at targets, and we have to take the necessary safety precautions, right? Because they can seriously injure people if something goes wrong. And it's great to be able to have rebuilt these depictions. Some of them can be quite costly to put out on display, like they're quite heavy and they can take large amounts of people to move and set up. So if we do a big display as a part of the Legion, we've got to hire workers and moving companies to move the siege equipment and the onagers, and then to build it up on the display. So it is a costly activity. But I tell you what, when it's all assembled and it's all set up, it's impressive, right? And that creates a lot of talking points, and everybody always has questions to have a look at that kit. And we personally, as a Legion, we will do training weekends and training camps where we can take some of that equipment out, and we will have training sessions and tutorials on how the equipment is used, and get an opportunity to fire that equipment as well, which is an incredible experience that not a lot of people get to do. So that is also very exciting.
before Corona happened, what type of events would there be, with these items on display? I mean, were they, annual Roman festivals or what? And how many people also would be watching these?
So I guess certainly from the Legion's point of view, there's come to be a few regular activities which they get invited along to. For example, it would be the nearby international or yearly Italian festival, and the Italian roots back to ancient Rome, and the Legion could do some depictions, and we could march around, show some of our equipment off, take photos with people. So that's always a treat that we get to do that. In other cases, again, down here in the south, is an event called Timeline, and that is looking at a whole span of history, but brings reenactors together from all walks, again, to do various displays. From medieval to right up to the world wars, and of course ancient Rome, and there we can work together, of course, and often with other Roman groups, and put on displays and show various drills and reenactments and fighting as well. And that's also really, really exciting to be a part of. So yeah, there are a few standing activities around here, Australia, and once the restrictions have continued to ease here, we should hopefully start to see these restarted again across Australia, which will be good.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that soon, things will improve. I mean, I'm lucky that in Europe, travel as long as you're vaccinated is possible, generally speaking. Um, but yeah, I don't think in recently in most places in Europe they had restrictions within the country like you do in Australia. So I mean, I really hope that life could get back to normal, and you could definitely have a lot of events.
Right.
And the good thing though is I'm sure not everybody, but I'm sure some of the people that go to these events see you and they also get interested in Roman history because it's a type of living history. Whereas, it's not about books, but it's about, like being a part of and witnessing an event that is based on something in the past. So, I mean, we're all rooting that, in Australia things will get better,
Definitely.
and yeah, you could grow the province and do bigger and better things.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And living history is an amazing way to go about learning about that. And Nova Roma offers a fantastic pathway to really ingrain yourself in ancient Roman history, tradition, and religions. And I'm really excited to be able to lead the province here and grow Nova Roma across the region. And I give thanks to my dedicated staff, and in particular my provincial quaestor, pro quaestor there, Guy Sempronius Skepsis Agricola. He has just been an absolute pillar of strength on this endeavour of ours and this journey to grow the Roman Republic and ancient Rome here in the province. So it's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this year and the years to come.
That is amazing to hear. I do have to say thank you so much for spending the time, speaking with me, and also being the first of perhaps a series of interviews. It's really been a pleasure. I've got to know so much about you, about uh, Nova Roma, about Nova Roma in Australia, about the community in Australia, and I find it really fascinating. So it's been a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. And I also have to say thank you to the viewers out there that have joined us, and also the many comments from various people within Nova Roma. So thank you to everybody.
Awesome, and thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. I hope you and everybody else have a great rest of the Sunday, although I think it's Monday already in
Yeah.
Australia. So I hope you have a good night there.
Awesome. All right. Valete.
Thank you. Take care.